I did not flinch. The wine was cold against my cheek, dripping down into the silk collar of a dress that cost more than my stepfather's monthly mortgage payment, the mortgage I had been paying for the last 7 years. The ballroom of the Whitlock Hotel went so quiet I could hear the string quartet realize they should stop playing. They didn't, not right away. The cellist held one long, awful note like a wound that wouldn't close. My mother stood in front of me with the empty glass still in her hand, and her chest heaving the way it did when she was about to cry on cue. She didn't, of course. She never actually cried. She just performed the shape of it. "You ungrateful little brat," she said, loud enough for the table of judges to hear, loud enough for the senator's wife, loud enough for the cameras my younger sister had positioned near the dessert station for her live stream. "You come to your father's retirement gala dressed like that, and then you have the nerve to correct me in front of these people?" I had corrected her on one thing. One. She had introduced me as her stepdaughter from her first marriage. I am not. I am her biological daughter from her only marriage. My father is the man whose retirement we were supposedly celebrating. The man sitting 2 seats away with his hands folded in his lap and his eyes on his bread plate, because he has been afraid of her for 31 years. I took the linen napkin from the table and dabbed my collarbone. The wine had already soaked through. There was a smear of Merlot on my pearl earring, the one my grandmother left me. "Mom," I said. "Quiet, conversational. You're embarrassing yourself." She slapped me, open palm, full force, across the same cheek the wine had hit. The sound of it cracked off the chandeliers. Somewhere near the bar, a woman gasped, and a man muttered, "Jesus Christ." My sister, behind her phone, made a small choked sound that I knew was a laugh she was trying to swallow. "Get out," my mother hissed. "Get out of my husband's party. Get out of this family. You are a shame. You have always been a shame. Look at you. Look at you." I looked at her instead. She was 61 years old and wearing a dress that I had bought her for Christmas. The diamond bracelet on her wrist, I had paid for it. The mortgage on the Tudor revival in Brookhaven where this party's after party was being held, mine. The lease on my father's BMW parked in the valet line, mine. The country club membership, mine. The catering bill that some poor accounts manager would try to charge to her card tomorrow morning was going to bounce. I set the napkin down on the table. "Okay," I said. That was all. I walked out of that ballroom in my soaked dress with my head up and my heels not making a single uneven sound on the marble. I did not cry in the elevator. I did not cry in the parking garage. I did not cry on the drive home, even when I passed the exit for the house I'd grown up in, the one I'd been paying property taxes on since I was 26. I made it to my kitchen, set my keys in the bowl by the door, and stood at the counter for a long minute with my hand on the cold marble. Then I picked up my phone. It was 10:47 p.m. on a Saturday. I called my banker anyway. He picked up on the second ring because he has known me a long time, and because the kind of money I moved to his bank means he is not allowed to stop picking up. "Brookline," I said. "I need everything frozen by morning." He didn't ask me which accounts. He knew which accounts. All of them? Every single one. The mortgage on Brookhaven too? Especially that one. There was a pause. He's a careful man. He's been careful with my money since I was 23 when the company sold the first time, and I walked away with more than I knew what to do with. "You understand what this triggers." "I understand. The auto pays for the country club, the leases, the credit lines you authorized for, yes, Brookline. And the trust disbursements to your mother, yes." "All right," he said. "I'll have it done before 8 a.m. Monday papers. I'll need your signature on." "You want me to overnight them?" "Bring them yourself." "I'm not signing anything I don't read in front of you." "Understood." And he hesitated the way he does when he's about to step out of banker mode for half a second. "Are you okay?" I looked at the wine stain on my dress, dried now into something the color of old blood. "I will be." I poured myself a glass of water and went to bed. My name is Hollis Vance. I am 33 years old. I sold my first software company at 23 for what most people would call a comfortable retirement. I sold my second one at 29 for what most people would call a small fortune. I started my third one at 31, and it has done well enough that the financial press has, on 3 separate occasions, used the word quiet to describe me, which is the highest compliment they know how to give a woman. Nobody in my family knows any of this. They think I'm a freelance consultant who got lucky once. They think the apartment in the city is a rental. They think the car is leased through my boss. They think the reason I never married, never had kids, never moved back to Brookhaven is because I am, as my mother has told her bridge club for 15 years, still figuring herself out. I let them think it. That was the first mistake I made, and it took me until I was 33 and standing in a ballroom with wine in my hair to admit it was a mistake. Here is what I should have told them 7 years ago when my mother first called me sobbing about the foreclosure notice. I should have told them that the trust their lawyer set up wasn't for my father's pension, it was for me. That the anonymous family friend who'd settled my sister's gambling debts in Reno wasn't anonymous. That the scholarship that paid for my nephew's prep school wasn't a scholarship. That the renovation of the Brookhaven house, the wine cellar, the koi pond, the carriage house my stepfather converted into his studio, where he paints lighthouses he has never seen in person, that none of it came from a HELOC or my father's bonus or my mother's investments. It came from me, all of it, for 7 years. I should have told them. I didn't. Because every time my mother called crying, I heard the 4-year-old in me who used to crawl into her closet during her depressive weeks and just sit there among her shoes, waiting for her to notice I was missing. I heard the 11-year-old who took the bus to school for 2 years because she forgot to drive me. I heard the 16-year-old who got into a car accident and called her, and she sent my younger sister to pick me up because she was at a tennis lesson. I heard all of those versions of me, and every time I thought, this time I'll be enough. This time the money will do what the daughter couldn't. It was never going to. I knew that. I paid anyway. Sunday I slept until 11. I didn't check my phone. When I finally did, there were 43 missed calls. 28 from my sister, 8 from my mother, 6 from my stepfather, 1 from my father, which I listened to first, sitting on the edge of my bed in a t-shirt and bare feet. His voice was small. Hollis, sweetheart, I don't know what happened last night. Your mother she's very upset. Could you call her? She's worried. Please. He was not worried about me. He was worried that her being upset would mean a long week for him. I deleted it. My sister's first voicemail from 9:12 a.m. Hollis, what the hell? My card just got declined at brunch. In front of Margot. The waiter looked at me like I was a call me back. Her 7th voicemail from 9:27. Okay, so apparently all my cards are frozen, including the Amex, and the bank is telling me there's a hold on the account. What does that even mean? Did you do something? Did mom do something? Did mom do something? Call me back. Her 14th from 10:30. You know what? Fine. Fine. Be a child about it. Mom said you'd pull something like this, she said. I scrolled to my mother's. There were only 8 from her because she preferred texting. The text started polite-ish, honey, call me, we need to talk, and escalated into, you will not get away with this by 10:15, and I made you and I can ruin you by 10:42, which was, I noted, faster than I predicted. I'd told my therapist on Friday it would take her until at least noon Sunday to threaten me. I owed Dr. Pell $5. My stepfather's voicemails I didn't listen to. He never speaks first. He just breathes into the phone for 30 seconds and hangs up, which I think is meant to convey disappointment, but actually conveys that he is 68 years old and doesn't know how voicemail works. I made coffee. I put on real clothes. I drove to the bakery on the corner and bought a croissant, and I ate it sitting in my window seat looking out at the river. By the time I'd finished the croissant, my mother's account had attempted to charge $4,200 to the country club catering, $812 to a salon called Myrell's, and $176 to a wine merchant in Brookhaven who, the bank notification told me, was now requesting verification of identity. I authorized none of it. At 1:14 p.m., the first reporter called my office line. I knew it would happen eventually. The gala had been covered by the regional society pages. My mother had been photographed there in her diamond bracelet, and someone in that ballroom had a phone out. It turned out to be the senator's wife's stepdaughter, who is 26 and apparently runs an anonymous society blog, and who had posted, by Sunday afternoon, a 6-paragraph piece titled, "Brookhaven's Most Untouchable Family Just Got Touched." She had video of the slap. She had video of me walking out. She had, somehow, a tip about the catering bill bouncing. I did not give an interview. Monday morning Brookline came to my apartment at 7:30 with a leather folder and a face that suggested he had not slept much. He laid the papers across my dining table in the order they needed to be signed and walked me through each one. The first set transferred the deed of the Brookhaven house out of the LLC I had quietly placed it in 6 years ago and into a different LLC, one whose only listed officer was a real estate management company that would, by Friday, begin the eviction process. My parents had 90 days. The notice would be posted on their front door by Wednesday afternoon. The second set terminated the lease on the BMW. The car would be repossessed from the valet line at the country club within 72 hours, which I thought was a nice touch. The third set closed the trust. The trust had been the trickiest part. I'd structured it years ago so that it looked, on paper, like a small inheritance from a great-aunt who had died in 2009 and whose estate had, miraculously, kept paying out for 15 years. My mother had never questioned it. She had a complicated relationship with how money worked, in the sense that she had no relationship with how money worked at all. Closing the trust meant a final letter to her on the law firm's letterhead, informing her that the corpus had been depleted and that all disbursements would cease as of the close of business Monday. The letter would also, by my specific request, list the actual total she had drawn from the trust over the past 7 years. $2.4 million. Brookline read the figure aloud when we got to that page. He looked at me over his reading glasses. "You're sure you want to include this?" "I'm sure." "She'll know." "I want her to know." He signed as my witness. I signed in 7 places. He gathered the papers, slid them into the folder, and stood. "Hollis," he said. "Yeah, I've known you a long time." "Yeah, this is going to be uglier than you think it is." I poured him another cup of coffee. "I know." He left at 8:14 a.m. By 8:32, my mother had been notified by her bank that her line of credit had been suspended. By 9:01, the country club had called her to inform her that her catering invoice from Saturday remained unpaid, and that her membership was, pending review, suspended. By 9:40, my sister's husband, a man I will call him my brother-in-law because I have, in the last 7 years, said his actual name aloud perhaps 12 times, was in the middle of a lunch meeting at the steakhouse downtown when his Amex was declined. I know this because my sister, in her fifth call of the morning, told me. She did not yet understand that telling me was telling me. That I was sitting in my apartment with my coffee getting cold and listening to her describe, in real time, the dismantling of her life as if she were narrating a true crime podcast about somebody else. They wouldn't even let him open a tab, Hollis. They made him call me, and then they made me call our financial advisor, and our financial advisor said the strangest thing. What did he say? He said the funds had been clawed back. Clawed back. He said that. Like we were criminals. Hollis, what is happening? Is Mom doing this? Is this a tax thing? Are we being audited? Oh my God, are we being audited? You should call Mom. I can't call Mom. Mom is at the salon, having a fit. Apparently the salon won't take her card. Goodbye, Sutton. Don't you dare. I hung up. I should tell you about my sister. Her name is Sutton. She is 28, blonde, beautiful in the bored way that very thin women from very rich-looking families are beautiful. And she has, since the age of 4, been my mother's favorite. This is not me being dramatic. My mother has said this aloud at multiple family gatherings with witnesses. Sutton is my heart. Hollis is my project. When I was 9 and Sutton was 4, Sutton broke my collarbone by pushing me down the stairs because I wouldn't let her wear my Halloween costume. My mother, when she heard what had happened, slapped me and told me I needed to learn to share. I went to the ER with my father. Sutton wore my costume to her preschool parade. My mother filmed it. By the time Sutton was 16, she had totaled 2 cars. By 22, she had been kicked out of 3 colleges. At 25, she married my brother-in-law, a man who works in what he describes as private wealth strategy, and which, as far as I can tell, involves losing other people's money on margin trades and then losing his own money trying to make it back. They have a daughter, my niece, who is 6, and the only member of that family I love. The prep school I have been paying for is hers. The prep school, I should note, was the one thing I did not freeze. Tuition for the spring semester had been wired the previous Wednesday, ahead of schedule. My niece's school is paid through June. I am not a monster, I am a woman with a list. Tuesday morning at 8:14, my mother showed up at my apartment building. She did not have the door code anymore. I had changed it 6 months ago when she'd started showing up unannounced to borrow things, by which I mean help herself to whatever was new in my closet. But she had figured out that if she stood by the front door long enough, somebody would let her in. She had been standing there since 7:40, my doorman told me when he called up, and she had told 3 separate residents that she was my mother and that I was having an episode. I went down. She was wearing the Cartier brooch I bought her for her 60th birthday, which I noticed because she was twisting it in her fingers like a rosary. Her hair, which she had been having professionally blown out twice a week for 7 years, was flat against her skull. She had not slept. She looked, for the first time in my adult life, her actual age. "Hollis," she said when she saw me. Her voice cracked on the second syllable, and I felt something pull in my chest, because she's still my mother and the body remembers. "Hollis, baby. There's been there's a mistake with the bank. They froze everything and I don't know how to, there's no mistake." She blinked. What? "I called the bank Saturday night. I froze the accounts, the trust is closed. The mortgage is being foreclosed, the lease on Dad's car has been terminated. The country club membership has been revoked. The HELOC on the house never existed, that was me. The renovations on the carriage house, me. Sutton's debts, me. The school, me. Everything has been me for 7 years." She stared at me. I had imagined this moment a great many times. I had imagined that I would feel powerful. I felt, mostly, tired. She started. "That's not, Hollis. That's not how. It is how. I have the papers. Brookline is sending you a letter today with the full accounting. $2.4 million. The number landed. I watched it land. Her face did something I had never seen it do, which was to go completely blank for 1 full second, like a screen between channels. Then it came back, and she was screaming. I won't write down what she screamed. Some of it was in the lobby and the doorman heard. Some of it was outside, on the sidewalk, where 2 of my neighbors were waiting for the dog walker. She called me a liar, and then she called me a thief, and then she called me a thief, and then she called me a word I had not heard her use since she'd caught me reading her diary when I was 12. I did not cry. I waited. When she ran out of breath, I said, "Mom, you have 90 days to vacate the house. I would suggest spending some of them figuring out what you actually want to say to me, because right now, you're just making noise." I went back upstairs. She came back Wednesday. She came back Thursday. By Friday, my brother-in-law was with her, and by Saturday, my stepfather was sitting in his Camry across the street, which is to say, the rental Camry, because his BMW had been picked up from the country club Wednesday morning, just as I'd arranged. That was the week the story broke wider. The Society blog post had been picked up by a regional magazine, and then by a podcast that covered family wealth scandals, and by the time my mother had called my office line 19 times to scream at my assistant, somebody, I have always suspected my sister, had told a reporter that the daughter who had been cut off from the family was actually the one who had been funding the family. The reporter ran with it. My PR team, which I had hired the previous Monday for exactly this reason, ran with it harder. By the following Friday, The Atlantic had run a piece, I will spare you the title, about adult-child financial scapegoating in upper-middle-class American families. I was not named. I did not need to be. The piece quoted anonymously what it called a 33-year-old founder, and my mother, who had been hosting bridge that afternoon, recognized me from the third sentence. She threw a glass against a wall. My niece told me this later. My niece had been in the next room with her iPad. I want to tell you about what happened to each of them. Because the comments on the news pieces, and you'd be surprised how many comments there were, kept asking. Real people asking, after fake feeling people, the way they do. My mother did not vacate the house in 90 days. She had to be removed by the sheriff. There was, briefly, a scene with a deputy and a porcelain bowl. She moved into a condo my stepfather's brother owns in Tampa. She has not spoken to me since the day in the lobby. I have not tried to speak to her either. I send my niece a card on her birthday. I do not include a return address. My stepfather sold the lighthouses. Nobody bought them. He sold the easels. Somebody did. He took a job as a greeter at a hardware store in Tampa, and from what my father tells me, yes, my father and I still speak very carefully on Sundays. He likes it. He likes being seen by strangers who do not know what he used to be. I understand the feeling in a different direction. My sister's husband, the wealth strategist, was investigated by the SEC 3 months later for a series of trades that, as it turns out, were not authorized by the clients whose accounts he was making them on. He pleaded out. He is doing 18 months in a federal facility in Pennsylvania. My sister has, since his sentencing, made approximately 14 attempts to contact me. The first 9 were screaming. The next 3 were begging. The last 2 have been, I think, sincere. I have not answered. I will. Someday. Not yet. My niece I see every other weekend. Sutton agreed to it eventually because she needed help with childcare and because I was the only family member with both the money and the willingness. We do not talk about her mother on those weekends. We make pancakes. We read books. She is the only one of them who never did anything to me, and she will not grow up believing that family means you eat what is thrown at you. My father took early retirement, the real kind, and moved to a 1-bedroom in Asheville. He calls me on Sundays. He apologizes in small careful pieces for the things he did not do. I let him. I do not let him off the hook. There is a difference. The Brookhaven house was sold to a developer who tore it down and put up 3 smaller, uglier houses, which I think is the most accurate possible end to that particular American story. And me. The me of all this. I went back to work on the Monday after the gala. The same Monday, Brookline came over with the papers, and at 10 a.m., I sat in a board meeting and presented Q4 projections, and nobody on that board knew that the night before I had been slapped in front of 300 people. Nobody on that board knew anything about my family at all. That is what I had built. A whole life sealed off from them like a clean room in a dirty house. What I wish someone had told me at 26, when my mother first called sobbing about a foreclosure that was actually a bluff, is this: the money is not the way back in. There is no way back in. You cannot pay enough to become a daughter to a woman who already decided you were a project. But also, and this is the part I think the women in the comments understand best, you do not have to stop being kind. I still pay for my niece's school. I still call my father. I still answer when Brookline asks me, in that careful way of his, "Are you okay?" The story is not that I became hard. The story is that I stopped paying people to hit me. I went to the gala in a dress I had bought myself, with money I had earned myself, in a body that had taken 33 years to learn how to stand up straight in a room full of people who wanted it small. My mother slapped me because I corrected her. She slapped me because for 1 second, in front of 300 witnesses, I had been bigger than the size she had assigned me. I walked out without a word because I had nothing left to say to her. But I had one call left to make, and that, more than the slap, more than the whine, more than the 7 years of paying, that one phone call is the part of the story I want you to remember. Because every woman watching this has a phone in her hand right now, and every woman watching this knows the number she could call if she were ready. I'm not telling you to call it. I'm just telling you it's there. I've thought about that night more times than I want to admit. Not the slap. The slap was almost easy, in a strange way. It was the cleanest thing my mother had ever done to me, because at least the bruise was visible. What I think about is the 7 years before the slap. The 7 years I paid. That is the part I want you to sit with, because that is where the real lesson lives. My mother didn't slap me because I was a shame. She slapped me because for 1 second I was bigger than the size she had assigned me, and people in that ballroom saw it. Everything she did to me, my whole life, was about keeping me a particular size. And every check I wrote, every mortgage payment I covered, every debt I quietly cleared, those weren't acts of love. Those were me agreeing to stay small. I see that now. I didn't see it then. This is what nobody tells you about people like my mother or Sutton or my brother-in-law. They don't get worse because you give them less. They get worse because you give them more. Every time I solved a problem for them, I taught them that problems were my job. I built the cage they kept me in, one transfer at a time. The cause and the effect were so tangled up in love and obligation that I couldn't see the wire I was handing over to be wrapped around my own throat. That is the hardest kind of harm, the kind you fund yourself. If you take one thing from my story, take this. Kindness without a spine is not kindness. It is fear wearing kindness as a costume. Real goodness. The kind you can be proud of when you're old, as a backbone in it. It says yes when yes is right, and no when no is right, and it does not bend because someone you love is screaming. My mother screamed at me my entire life. I confused her volume for her authority. They are not the same thing. I want you to know that. They are not the same thing. There is a strength that has nothing to do with being hard. It is the strength of seeing clearly. It is the strength of writing down what you have given and what you have received, and being honest about the column that is empty. It is the strength of calling a banker at 10,047 on a Saturday night, with wine still drying on your collarbone, and not crying, not because you are not sad, but because you have finally chosen yourself. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to do it without permission. You do not owe anyone the daughter they wanted instead of the daughter you are, and the day you stop paying to be loved is the day you find out who actually loved you. Some of them will surprise you. Most of them will not. Either way, you will be free. That is the only ending worth walking toward.